Welcome to the Book Reading and Summaries channel.
Introduction: Why this book exists. Worry is the silent thief of life. It steals our peace, our sleep, our energy, and sometimes even our health. Dale Carnegie wrote How to Stop Worrying and Start Living not as a theory, but as a collection of real human experiences. Lessons drawn from men and women who faced fear, uncertainty, and tragedy, yet found a way to smile again. Carnegie believed that life doesn't have to be a battle against worry. It can be a dance with acceptance and courage. This book teaches us how to think differently, how to control our thoughts instead of letting them control us. He once said, "Our life is what our thoughts make it." The goal, then, is simple: to live today fully, without being haunted by yesterday or frightened by tomorrow. Part 1. Fundamental Facts You Should Know About Worry. Chapter 1. Live in Daytight Compartments. Carnegie begins with a powerful metaphor inspired by Sir William Osler, a world-famous physician. When Osler was a young medical student, he realized something that changed his life. Ships at sea are built with watertight compartments. When trouble strikes one section, the crew seals off that compartment, keeping the rest of the ship safe. Osler decided to live his life the same way. He called it living in daytight compartments. That means closing the doors to yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's anxieties, and living today as if it were your entire life. He said, "The load of tomorrow, added to that of yesterday carried today, makes the strongest falter." Imagine you're standing on a bridge between the past and the future. Your job is not to cross both at once, it's to stand firm where you are. Carnegie tells stories of people who found peace by focusing only on the present moment. One businessman said, "When I think about what I have to do today, I can handle it. But when I think about all the things I might have to face this year, I feel crushed." So the first secret to conquering worry is simple yet profound. Shut the iron doors on the past and future. Live in today's compartment. Chapter 2. The Magic Formula for Solving Worry Situations. When faced with a worrying problem, Carnegie suggests a simple, three-step formula that he learned from Willis H. Carrier, the engineer who founded the Carrier Air Conditioning Company. Here's the formula that saved Carrier from a nervous breakdown. Ask yourself, what is the worst that could possibly happen? Don't exaggerate or deny it. Face it. Prepare yourself mentally to accept the worst, if it should happen. This doesn't mean giving up. It means freeing yourself from fear. Then calmly try to improve upon the worst. Once you accept the worst, your mind clears and you can think rationally about how to make it better. Carrier once faced a crisis when a chemical process he designed went wrong, possibly costing his company millions. He stayed awake all night worrying, until he said, "What's the worst that can happen? We might lose $20,000. I'll accept that." Once he accepted it, he could finally think clearly, and within days he found a solution that saved most of the loss. Acceptance gave him power. Acceptance of what has happened is the first step to overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. Chapter 3. What Worry May Do to You. Carnegie then moves from the mind to the body. Worry doesn't just hurt your thoughts, it can destroy your health. He quotes doctors who have seen patients die not from disease, but from fear, anxiety, and resentment. One famous physician said, "Those who do not know how to fight worry die young." Worry can lead to ulcers, headaches, high blood pressure, insomnia, and heart disease. In fact, it's often not what we eat that kills us, it's what eats us. Carnegie tells of a woman who developed severe stomach pain every night before bed. Doctors found nothing wrong with her body, but emotionally, she was being torn apart by guilt and anxiety. Once she learned to relax and forgive herself, the pain disappeared. So the lesson is clear. Keep your mind peaceful, or your body will pay the price. Part 2. Basic Techniques in Analyzing Worry. Once we understand what worry is and what it does to us, we need tools to deal with it. Carnegie gives us practical methods, real thinking tools, that help turn chaos into clarity. Chapter 4. How to Analyze and Solve Worry Problems. He suggests a simple, logical four-step process. Get the facts. Half the worry in the world comes from people trying to make decisions without enough information. Analyze the facts. What can you control? What can't you control? Make a decision. After you've gathered and analyzed the facts, make a clear decision. Don't keep reconsidering it. Act on that decision. Once you've made up your mind, stop worrying and start acting. Carnegie explains how businesspeople and leaders use this system to stay sane under pressure. He tells the story of a manager who would write his problems down on paper, separating facts from fears. By the time he finished, most of the fear was gone, replaced by clarity. Chapter 5. How to Eliminate 50% of Your Business Worries. Carnegie interviewed countless executives and discovered that half their stress disappeared once they started organizing their thoughts clearly. He suggested using a simple worksheet whenever worry appears. What am I worrying about? What can I do about it? What am I going to do about it? When am I going to start doing it? This method transformed vague anxiety into concrete action. And as Carnegie says, action is the antidote to worry. Worry feeds on indecision. Once you decide and move, it starves. Part 2. How to break the worry habit before it breaks you. Chapter 6. Crowd worry out of your mind. Carnegie opens this section with one of the simplest yet most powerful truths about human nature. Our minds can hold only one thought at a time, so fill it with something useful. You can't think about fear and gratitude at the same time. You can't feel anxious and excited simultaneously. Therefore, the secret isn't to stop worrying. It's to replace the worry. He tells the story of a young woman who suffered panic attacks during the war. Her doctor advised her not to fight the fear, but to fill her life so completely with activity that worry had no room to stay. She joined clubs, volunteered at hospitals, read books aloud to soldiers. Within months, she was calm and joyful again. Carnegie calls this crowding worry out of your mind. When you're busy doing something meaningful, worry starves, because it needs idle time to grow. Keep busy. The worried mind is like a mill that grinds, but it grinds whatever you put into it. Put in corn and you get flour. Put in weeds and you get poison. Chapter 7. Don't let the beetles get you down. This chapter is filled with humor, but its message cuts deep. Carnegie tells of a farmer whose cornfield was being eaten by beetles. Instead of panicking, he said calmly, "Well, if the beetles are determined to eat my crop, they're welcome. I'll just plow the field under and plant something else." The farmer understood something most people forget. Resisting small irritations gives them power. Life is full of little beetles. Annoyances, rude comments, delays, minor failures. If you let every small thing upset you, your energy drains away before you can face what really matters. Carnegie writes, "Two men looked out from prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw the stars." He suggests developing a mental habit. When something small goes wrong, laugh at it, ignore it, or turn it into a story. Don't magnify it. When you learn to brush off life's tiny troubles, you become mentally bulletproof. Chapter 8. A law that will outlaw many of your worries. Here Carnegie introduces the law of averages, a surprisingly powerful way to calm irrational fears. He tells the story of a pilot who was terrified that his plane might crash. A mathematician friend asked him, "How many flights are there every day?" "Thousands." "How many crashes?" "Very few." "So what are your odds?" The pilot laughed and suddenly felt at peace. The law of averages teaches that most things we fear almost never happen. When you feel anxious, Carnegie says, ask yourself, what are the chances, realistically, that this thing I fear will happen? Usually the answer is tiny. And once you face that truth, your mind can relax. The biggest troubles we have are those that never happen. Chapter 9. Cooperate with the inevitable. This is one of Carnegie's favorite lessons, and one of the most liberating ideas in the entire book. He tells the story of a man who lost his leg in an accident. For months, he cursed fate. Then one day he met another man who had lost both legs, and was cheerful. That encounter changed everything. He realized he couldn't control what had happened, but he could control what came next. The man said, "I finally stopped fighting the inevitable and started to live again." Carnegie sums it up. When you accept the inevitable, you remove half its power. There's an old saying, if you get a lemon, make lemonade. Carnegie takes it further. Don't just make lemonade. Sell it, share it, and thank life for giving you the chance to learn resilience. Acceptance is not weakness. It's clarity, the wisdom to save your strength for things you can change. Chapter 10. Put a stop-loss order on your worries. Borrowing a term from finance, Carnegie suggests that just as investors limit how much they're willing to lose on a trade, we should limit how much time and energy we lose to worry. He gives a real example. A salesman once obsessed for weeks about losing a deal worth $100. Carnegie asked, "Is your peace of mind worth $100? The man laughed and moved on. From that day, he made a rule. I will never worry for more than 1 hour about anything that's worth less than $100. This mental stop-loss order works for anything: relationships, mistakes, arguments. Decide how much energy it deserves, then stop investing after that limit. Because life is too precious to waste on what can't be undone. Chapter 11. Don't saw sawdust. One of Carnegie's most poetic lessons: you can't saw sawdust. Once wood is cut, it's done. No amount of sawing changes anything. He tells the story of a woman who destroyed her happiness by replaying past mistakes over and over. When she finally understood the metaphor, that she was sawing sawdust, she laughed and felt years of regret fall away. The past is over. The only thing we can change is our response to it. Forget it. Cut your losses. Let the dead past bury its dead. Some Behind Small Cloud, the big idea from part 2. This part of the book is a mental cleansing. A gentle but firm reminder that life is too short to be consumed by imagined fears and regrets. Worry doesn't vanish by force. It fades when we fill our minds with purposeful action, gratitude, acceptance, and humor. As Carnegie says, peace doesn't mean a life without storms. It means having the courage to stand calmly in the rain. Part 3. 7 Ways to Cultivate a Mental Attitude That Will Bring You Peace and Happiness. Chapter 12. Fill your mind with peace, courage, health, and hope. Carnegie begins this part by saying something beautifully simple. Our thoughts make us what we are. If your mind is full of fear and anger, your life will reflect it. But if your mind is full of peace, courage, and gratitude, your world transforms. He tells a story about a doctor who treated patients suffering from nervous breakdowns. He said that 70% of them weren't physically ill at all. They were sick in their thoughts. They had filled their minds with resentment, envy, and fear until their bodies broke down. One day, a nurse noticed something fascinating. When she played cheerful music, patients smiled and relaxed. When she read uplifting poetry to them, their pulse slowed. The mind truly controls the body. Carnegie's advice: guard your thoughts like a fortress. Every morning, choose what kind of thoughts will live inside your mind. Fill it deliberately with peace, courage, health, and hope, not bitterness, fear, or jealousy. He quotes the great psychologist William James. The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes. Chapter 13. Never try to get even with your enemies. Few things drain peace faster than resentment. Carnegie tells the story of General Eisenhower during World War II. When someone asked him how he handled hatred and revenge, he said, "I don't have time to hate. I'm too busy planning for tomorrow." That's the point. Bitterness steals time and energy you could use to build your future. Carnegie shares the story of a man who was cheated by his partner. For years he plotted revenge. Meanwhile, the dishonest partner moved on and prospered. The man realized too late that his hatred had punished no one but himself. As long as you hate a person, Carnegie writes, you give them power over you, power over your sleep, your health, your happiness. Forgiveness isn't approval. It's freedom. When you release your enemies, you release yourself. Chapter 14. Expecting Gratitude. This chapter is one of Carnegie's most realistic and liberating. He begins with a bold truth. If you expect gratitude, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Carnegie shares the story of a mother who sacrificed her whole life for her son, and was heartbroken when he rarely wrote or visited. But when she realized that expecting thanks was the root of her pain, she found peace again. Human beings, he explains, are naturally self-focused. We remember our needs more than others' favors. So, instead of expecting gratitude, we should act out of our own integrity and joy, not to earn appreciation. Blessed are those who give without remembering, and receive without forgetting. Expecting gratitude leads to bitterness. Acting from love brings peace. Chapter 15. Count your blessings, not your troubles. In this chapter, Carnegie reintroduces one of his oldest lessons, the art of gratitude. He tells the story of a blind man selling pencils on a busy New York corner. When a friend asked how he stayed cheerful, he smiled and said, "Because I have the best job in the world. I'm a salesman who doesn't have to watch the clock." Carnegie writes, count your blessings, they are countless if you only stop to see them. He suggests a simple exercise. Every night before bed, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They can be small: a smile, a meal, a kind word. Over time, this rewires your brain. Gratitude turns worry into wonder. It's not ignoring problems. It's remembering that even in pain, there is beauty. Chapter 16. Find yourself and be yourself. Remember, there is no one else on earth like you. This is one of the most empowering chapters. Carnegie insists that most of our anxiety comes from pretending to be someone we're not. He tells of a young actor who tried to imitate a famous performer and failed miserably. When he stopped copying and acted in his own natural style, he became a star. The lesson: comparison is poison. There is no right way to be, only your way. No man living has your fingerprint, your voice, your thoughts. Why waste your life trying to be someone else? Authenticity breeds peace because it ends the exhausting battle of pretense. Be yourself, calmly, proudly, and kindly. Chapter 17. If you have a lemon, make lemonade. Here comes one of the most famous metaphors in Carnegie's writing. He tells of a man who lost his sight but decided to become a piano tuner. He used his hearing, which had grown sharper, to build a successful business. His blindness became his advantage. Carnegie says, when fate hands you a lemon, don't complain, make lemonade. That's not just optimism. It's strategy. Every setback hides an opportunity. Every failure can teach resilience. He suggests asking yourself, how can I turn this difficulty into a benefit? Worry dissolves when your mind shifts from complaint to creativity. Chapter 18. Forget yourself by becoming interested in others. This is one of the most heart-centered lessons in the book. Carnegie tells about a woman who fell into depression after losing her husband. Her doctor advised her to volunteer at a local orphanage. Within weeks, her sadness began to lift. Why? Because she stopped thinking constantly about her pain and started giving love. No one ever got eye strain from looking on the bright side of life, or from looking into the eyes of others. When you care about others, you step outside the cage of self-obsession. And when you do that, your heart finds meaning again. Sunrise the Big Idea from Part 3. This section is the soul of Carnegie's philosophy. Peace doesn't come from avoiding problems. It comes from cultivating the right attitude toward them. Fill your mind with positive thoughts. Release resentment. Be yourself. Find blessings in disguise. And most of all, turn your attention outward, toward others. When you live this way, worry loses its hold, because your spirit becomes larger than your fear. Happiness doesn't depend on who you are or what you have. It depends on what you think. Part 4. The Golden Rule for Conquering Worry. Chapter 19. How My Mother and Father Conquered Worry. Carnegie opens this section with a story from his own childhood, a tribute to the humble wisdom of his parents. His mother, a simple farm woman, lived through hard times, failed crops, harsh winters, and the loss of loved ones. Yet, she never let despair consume her. When people asked how she stayed so calm, she said, "When I'm too busy helping others, I don't have time to worry about myself." Carnegie reflects. His mother didn't have access to psychologists or self-help books. She simply practiced the oldest truth in the world. The surest way to forget your troubles is to help someone else with theirs. His father, too, lived by this law. When his crops failed one year, he didn't sit and complain. He walked to a neighbor's farm and helped him harvest. By nightfall, he felt lighter. He said to young Dale, "When you dig someone else out of their troubles, you find a place to bury your own." That line became one of the cornerstones of Carnegie's philosophy. The more you give time, care, attention, the less room worry has to live in your heart. Chapter 20. The Rule That Will Eliminate 50% of Your Business Worries. Carnegie then shifts from family wisdom to professional life. He recalls a businessman who was always anxious about profits, clients, and staff. One day, his mentor told him, "Stop trying to get everything for yourself. Start asking, how can I help my customer, my employee, my partner?" The man tried it. He replaced greed with service, fear with cooperation. Within months, not only did his business improve, but his insomnia vanished. Why? Because worry thrives on self-centeredness. When you focus only on what you might lose or gain, every moment feels like a battle. But when you shift your energy toward contribution, helping others succeed, anxiety melts away. Carnegie writes, "The most effective way to eliminate worry in business is to lose yourself in service. When you think of others' needs first, you forget to be afraid." The Golden Rule summed up. The golden rule of life, according to Carnegie, is ancient but forever modern. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. He explains that living by this rule is not just a moral ideal, it's psychological therapy. It dissolves jealousy, resentment, and fear, because it turns your mind outward, away from self-torture and toward meaningful connection. Carnegie illustrates this with a story about a teacher who faced constant criticism from parents. Instead of growing defensive, she began asking herself, "If I were in their position, what would I want?" This simple shift transformed every conversation, and her stress disappeared. Empathy is a balm. It quiets the ego, which is where most worry hides. When you treat people generously, fairly, and kindly, you find that life treats you the same way. The secret power of service. Carnegie closes this section with a kind of moral challenge. If you want peace of mind, go out and do something for someone who can never repay you. Visit the sick. Encourage a struggling coworker. Send a letter of appreciation. These acts may seem small, but they have cosmic weight, because they remind you that you're part of something larger than yourself. He tells of a businessman who volunteered to teach poor children arithmetic once a week. That 1 hour, he said, was the only time I forgot my worries. Carnegie concludes, the best cure for worry is not thinking, it's doing. It's losing yourself in the joy of service. Lightbulb the Big Idea from Part 4. This part distills one truth. You can't worry and serve at the same time. When you help others, you step into the flow of life, and worry loses its grip. The Golden Rule is not just about morality, it's about emotional survival. Live for others, and peace will find you. Happiness is not something that you get by chasing it. It's something that comes to you while you are helping others. Part 5. How to keep from worrying about criticism. Chapter 21. Remember that unjust criticism is often a disguised compliment. Carnegie begins with a surprising statement. Unjust criticism is often nothing more than a disguised compliment. He explains this through an old story from Abraham Lincoln's life. During the Civil War, Lincoln was attacked daily in newspapers. One critic called him a clumsy baboon. Instead of getting angry, Lincoln smiled and said, "If I were to read, much less answer, all the criticisms made of me, this office might as well be closed for repairs." Lincoln understood that people throw stones only at trees that bear fruit. If you're criticized, it means you're doing something that matters. Carnegie tells another story about Elbert Hubbard, author of A Message to Garcia. The essay was read by millions and mocked by thousands. Hubbard received hate mail every week, but he kept writing. To avoid criticism, he said, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. That, Carnegie says, is the essence of it. The only way to escape criticism is to stop living. So, if people talk behind your back, it's proof you're ahead of them. No one ever kicks a dead dog. Chapter 22. Do the very best you can. Then put up your old umbrella and keep the rain of criticism from running down your neck. Carnegie paints a vivid picture here. He says, if you do your best, that's all you owe to anyone, including yourself. He tells the story of a teacher who received a cruel anonymous letter accusing her of favoritism. She was heartbroken until her principal told her. The letter says more about the writer than about you. That moment freed her. She realized she could not control what others thought, only how she responded. Carnegie encourages readers to adopt what he calls the umbrella principle. When criticism rains down, don't stand there getting soaked. Open your umbrella, protect your peace, and keep walking. Do your best and then stop worrying. You can't please everyone, and if you try, you'll please no one, least of all yourself. He quotes the poet Herbert Spencer. There is a principle that is a bar against all information, which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Meaning, people often criticize what they don't understand. Don't take it personally. Chapter 23. Analyze criticism before you answer it. Not all criticism is bad. Some of it hides valuable truth, if you can listen calmly. Carnegie advises a practical 3-step process. Ask yourself, who criticized me? Do they have good judgment? Or are they just venting emotion? Ask why. Was their criticism meant to help me or to hurt me? Ask what. Is there any small part of truth I can use to improve myself? He tells of a salesman who used to explode whenever customers complained. One day, his manager said, instead of arguing, just write down what they say. You'll see their words more clearly. He did, and discovered that half the time, they were right. The other half, they were just tired or angry. By analyzing instead of reacting, he saved his nerves and doubled his sales. Carnegie writes, criticism is something you can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. But that is not living. So learn from it if you can. And if you can't, ignore it gracefully. Chapter 24. Forget your own mistakes, but learn from them. This chapter shifts from external criticism to self-criticism, the harshest kind. Carnegie tells the story of a young pilot who froze during a training flight and nearly crashed. He was so ashamed that he wanted to quit aviation. His commander said, forget it. That mistake is already paid for. Don't waste the tuition. The phrase stuck with him. Don't waste the tuition. If you've already paid the price for a mistake, the only smart thing to do is learn from it, not relive it. Carnegie reminds readers that even great scientists, artists, and leaders failed repeatedly. Thomas Edison tried thousands of filaments before inventing the light bulb. When asked if he ever got discouraged, Edison said, no, I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. Stop condemning yourself, Carnegie urges. You're a human being, not a god. Mistakes are proof that you're learning, growing, and daring to live. Don't worry about what others think of your failures. Most of the time, they're too busy worrying about their own. Chapter 25. Keep a notebook for your triumphs. Carnegie closes this section with a surprisingly modern idea, what we'd now call a gratitude or success journal. He tells of a woman who was crushed by constant criticism at work. A friend suggested she keep a small notebook where she recorded every compliment, success, and kind word she received. Months later, she said it changed her life. Whenever she felt defeated, she reread her notebook and remembered her worth. Worry is the memory of failure, Carnegie writes. Peace is the memory of victories. By deliberately recalling your successes, even small ones, you build emotional armor against the world's negativity. When you walk with confidence born of self-respect, other people's opinions lose their sting. Speech balloon: the big idea from part 5. Criticism is inevitable, but suffering from it is optional. Carnegie's advice in this section is clear and timeless. If it's unjust, ignore it. It's usually a sign you're doing something worthwhile. If it's fair, learn from it and move on without guilt. If it's self-criticism, forgive yourself and focus on progress. Peace comes when you stop trying to control other people's opinions and start mastering your own response. Do the best you can, then sleep in peace. God is awake. Part 6. 6 ways to prevent fatigue and worry and keep your energy and spirit high. Chapter 26. Rest before you get tired. Carnegie begins this chapter with a story about a young nurse who collapsed from nervous exhaustion. She worked long hours, skipped meals, and forced herself to stay cheerful for her patients. When she finally broke down, the doctor told her, "You don't get tired from working, you get tired from worrying about work." Carnegie explains that fatigue often comes before the body is actually exhausted. It begins in the mind. Most of us, he says, make a deadly mistake. We wait until we are completely burned out before resting. But the secret of productive, peaceful living is to rest before you collapse. He gives examples from history, like Thomas Edison, who used to take short naps whenever he felt his mind getting dull. Edison would stretch out on a bench in his lab, sleep for 15 minutes, and wake up full of ideas. Rest before you get tired, Carnegie insists. That's not laziness, it's wisdom. He even shares an experiment from a factory where workers who took short breaks every few hours got more done than those who worked straight through. So, if you want to stay calm, don't push to the edge. Pause early, breathe deeply, and let your body and mind renew. Chapter 27. Learn to relax at your work. Here, Carnegie tells the story of a secretary named Helen, who suffered from headaches and muscle tension. She blamed her workload, but her doctor told her it wasn't the work that was killing her. It was how she did the work. She typed tensely, hunched her shoulders, gritted her teeth, and used up more energy and tension than in actual effort. When she learned to relax, to breathe normally, drop her shoulders, and stop clenching her jaw, her headaches vanished. Carnegie demonstrates this through a small exercise. While reading this, notice your body. Are your shoulders tight? Is your face tense? Are you holding your breath? These invisible habits of strain silently drain our energy every day. He reminds readers of Sir William Osler, the famous doctor who said, "A relaxed man is rarely an ill man." To live well, Carnegie says you must practice mental smoothness, like an athlete who stays loose even under pressure. Don't fight your work. Flow with it. Relaxation is not a luxury, it's a survival skill. Chapter 28. Protect your health and appearance by relaxing at home. Carnegie shifts from the workplace to home life, and he's brutally honest. Many people who are gracious and controlled at the office turn into nagging, irritable wrecks at home. He describes a businessman who returned home each night in a storm of stress. He would snap at his wife, shout at the kids, and complain about his job. One day, his family confronted him. "We never know which version of you is coming home," his wife said. The man realized he was using up his last reserves of patience at work, and giving his family only his leftovers. So he made a simple rule. The moment he reached his front door, he would take a deep breath and silently say, "Forget the office." He imagined closing a door on his worries before entering his home. Within weeks, his family life and his health improved dramatically. Carnegie also warns about the physical toll of chronic tension: wrinkles, headaches, ulcers, high blood pressure. He writes, "The best cosmetic for the face is inner peace. When you relax at home, genuinely let go, you not only protect your mind, but also your appearance." Calm people, he says, look younger than their age. Chapter 29. How to avoid fatigue and keep looking young. This chapter feels almost like a timeless wellness guide. Carnegie reveals how the body and emotions constantly influence each other. When we're angry, muscles tighten, blood pressure rises, and our organs overwork. When we're calm, everything slows and heals. He says, "Our bodies are our gardens, our thoughts are the gardeners." He tells a touching story about a man who seemed 20 years younger than his actual age. His secret? He refused to let resentment or fear take root. "I never hurry," he said. "I never worry." Both make deep wrinkles, on the face and on the heart. Carnegie also gives practical tips that still apply today. Get enough sleep. Most people are chronically underrested. Eat light, balanced meals. Heavy foods slow the body and cloud the mind. Walk daily, preferably in fresh air. Smile. It relaxes the face and lowers internal tension. But most importantly, worry poisons the body like slow acid. Relaxation neutralizes it. If you want to stay young, learn to stay serene. Chapter 30. 4 good working habits that will help prevent fatigue and worry. Carnegie introduces 4 simple but powerful work habits to stay efficient without burning out. Clear your desk of all papers except those relating to the immediate problem at hand. Clutter equals confusion. When your desk, or your mind, is crowded, worry multiplies. Handle one thing at a time. A man is as strong as his ability to focus, he writes. Do things in the order of their importance. Don't waste your best energy on trivial tasks. Begin each day by identifying your priorities, what truly matters, and tackle those first. When you face a problem, solve it then and there if you have the facts to make a decision. Delaying decisions creates mental drag. The longer you postpone, the heavier your worry grows. If you can decide now, do it. Free your mind to move on. Learn to organize, delegate, and pace yourself. Carnegie gives the example of a business manager who worked 14 hours a day. Once he started training his team to take over small tasks, his hours dropped to 8, but his results doubled. Fatigue often comes not from too much work, but from unwise work. The more you organize and simplify, the more energy you conserve, and the less space worry has to grow. Chapter 31. How to banish boredom and keep your spirits high. In this final chapter of Part 6, Carnegie tackles an unexpected cause of fatigue, boredom. He argues that monotony is one of the great mental killers. A person doing dull, repetitive work often becomes more tired and more anxious than someone doing a physically demanding job. The cure? Find purpose in your work. He shares the story of a factory worker who used to hate his job on the assembly line. But when he began thinking of each finished product as something that helped others, a tool, a vehicle, a comfort, he found new energy. His attitude changed, and so did his health. Carnegie writes, "The secret of happiness is not always doing what you like, but in liking what you do." He ends the section with a call to gratitude. Whenever you feel weary, remember how fortunate you are to be alive, working, and learning. Boredom and fatigue can't survive in a mind filled with appreciation. The big lesson from part 6. Most worry is rooted in exhaustion, not danger. A tired body makes a tired mind. A calm body gives birth to a peaceful soul. Carnegie's message is simple and eternal. Rest before you're tired. Relax at work and at home. Keep your body light and your mind uncluttered. Do what matters and let the rest wait. Find joy in small tasks and gratitude in effort itself. Nothing can bring you peace but yourself, and peace begins with physical rest. Part 7. How to find the kind of work you will love. Chapter 32. The joy of work that fits your nature. Carnegie begins with a simple but powerful truth. The best way to stop worrying about your job is to love it. He tells the story of a young salesman named George, who hated his work. Every day he dragged himself from client to client, pretending to smile, but inside he was miserable. He thought his problem was laziness, until one day he admitted, "I'm in the wrong work." He loved people, but not sales pressure. There is no such thing as a small job, only small thinking about a job. Chapter 34. How to prevent burnout and keep passion alive. Carnegie turns to the danger of overdoing even the work you love. Passion, he says, can turn into fatigue if you don't balance it with rest and gratitude. He tells of a successful newspaper editor who worked 16 hours a day, obsessed with headlines and deadlines. He began losing sleep, snapping at his staff, and worrying constantly about mistakes. Finally, he collapsed. When he recovered, he changed his entire philosophy. "Now I work hard, but I don't worry hard. The two are different." Carnegie explains, "Worry sneaks in when we confuse doing our best with trying to control everything. Once you've done your honest work, let the results go." He advises readers to set mental boundaries. Work during work hours. Leave it behind afterward. Don't check for mistakes in your head after midnight. He also highlights the power of hobbies. Great workers, he says, have something outside of work that keeps their spirit fresh: painting, gardening, music, or walks in nature. A man who has no hobby has no safety valve for his soul. By balancing enthusiasm with rest, passion becomes fuel, not fire that burns you out. Chapter 35. Making the best of what you have. Sometimes, Carnegie admits, people simply can't change jobs, not immediately. But that doesn't mean they must live unhappily. He tells the story of a factory worker who spent 20 years in the same role and felt trapped. When asked what he enjoyed, he said, "Nothing." Carnegie challenged him. "Find one small thing to improve, even if it's just your workspace." The man began reorganizing tools, creating a cleaner, smoother system. His efficiency improved, others noticed, and he was soon promoted to supervisor. Happiness, Carnegie concludes, doesn't depend on a different job. It depends on a different way of doing the job you already have. What he really wanted was to teach. So he took a leap, became a trainer in a small school, and discovered that every morning he woke up energized instead of exhausted. When you are doing what you love, Carnegie writes, work becomes play, and fatigue turns into excitement. He encourages readers to analyze themselves. What kinds of work make you lose track of time? What do you do naturally well? What would you do even if you weren't paid for it? Carnegie reminds us that it's not how much you earn, but how alive you feel while earning it. A person working joyfully for little money is often richer in peace and satisfaction than one who earns a fortune in misery. He also warns against blindly following prestige or pressure. Many people climb the ladder of success, only to find it leaning against the wrong wall. Chapter 33. If you have a job you don't like, don't rush to quit. Transform it first. Carnegie is realistic. He knows that not everyone can instantly switch careers. So he gives practical advice for those who must stay where they are, at least for now. He introduces the story of a typist named Mary, who worked in a dull insurance office. She hated her tasks, until she decided to treat them as a personal challenge instead of punishment. She began timing herself, trying to improve her accuracy and speed. Soon, she became one of the top performers in her department, and her pride in doing excellent work made her feel alive. It's not your job that makes you miserable, Carnegie says, but how you think about it. If you can't change your work immediately, change your attitude toward it. Make it a game, a test of skill, or a training ground for your next opportunity. He gives another example, a janitor in a hospital who said, "I don't clean floors, I make this place safe for healing." That single shift in perspective gave meaning to what others saw as menial labor. Carnegie's golden line. Even when external change isn't possible, internal growth always is. He compares life to alchemy, turning ordinary metal into gold through perspective. You can't always change your circumstances, he says, but you can always change their meaning. Chapter 36. Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. This chapter is both poetic and grounding. It feels like the philosophical climax of the book. Carnegie distinguishes between outer success and inner fulfillment. Many people, he says, chase promotions, fame, and money, but after reaching the summit, they still feel restless. He recounts the story of a famous movie star who confessed privately, "I've won everything I dreamed of, and now I'm afraid there's nothing left." In contrast, Carnegie describes a small-town teacher who earned modestly but lived joyfully. She loved her students, her garden, and her morning walks. When asked if she envied the rich, she laughed. "Why should I? I have everything I truly want." Success, Carnegie writes, is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. This principle, he explains, is the ultimate cure for worry, because once you stop fighting reality and start embracing your present blessings, peace follows naturally. Carnegie ends the chapter with a prayer-like message. Do the best you can with what you have where you are, and be grateful that you are still here to do it. Son with Face, the big lesson from Part 7. Carnegie's message here is both practical and spiritual. Work that fits your nature gives life meaning. Attitude transforms dull tasks into noble ones. Enthusiasm must be balanced by rest. Even in limitation, there is freedom through gratitude. True success lies not in getting everything, but in enjoying what you have. He ends the part with one of his most beautiful truths. No one ever worried themselves into happiness, but millions have worked themselves into it by loving what they do. Part 8. The Perfect Way to Conquer Worry. Chapter 37. Put a stop-loss order on your worries. Carnegie borrows a metaphor from the world of finance. In investing, a stop-loss order means you set a limit on how much you're willing to lose before pulling out. He says we must do the same with our emotions. Decide just how much anxiety a thing may be worth, and refuse to give it a penny more. He tells the story of a businessman who lost sleep over a client's delayed payment. After weeks of worry, his wife asked, "What's the worst that can happen?" He admitted, "I might lose $1,000. Then, she said, consider that $1,000 spent, and buy your peace of mind. He did. Within hours, his stress vanished. Ironically, the client paid soon after. Carnegie says this is the paradox of peace. Once we stop clinging to control, things tend to work out more smoothly. The moment you accept the worst, he says, you are free. Chapter 38. Don't try to saw sawdust. This is one of Carnegie's most poetic and memorable phrases. He writes, "It is no use crying over spilled milk, and even less use trying to saw sawdust. Sawdust, of course, is wood that's already been cut. Once something is in the past, no amount of worry or regret can change it." He tells of a widowed mother who spent years grieving her son's death in war. One day she realized, "My tears will not bring him back, but they are keeping me from caring for the living." From that moment, she devoted her life to helping other soldiers' families. In serving others, her pain transformed into peace. Carnegie urges, stop trying to fix what's already finished. Let yesterday rest in peace. It deserves it. The past is a bucket of ashes. Tomorrow is a dream. Today is the only day that counts. Chapter 39. Count your blessings, not your troubles. This chapter overflows with warmth and gratitude. Carnegie says one of the surest ways to kill worry is to shift your focus from what's missing to what's present. He cites the story of Robert Louis Stevenson, who, though chronically ill, began every day by writing, "I will focus on what remains, not what has been taken." He reminds us that millions of people would give anything to have what we already take for granted: sight, hearing, health, food, shelter, love. He writes, "Count your blessings, you'll be surprised how many you have." He even suggests a practical exercise. Each morning, write down 3 things you are grateful for. Each night, reread them. Within weeks, he says, your whole emotional tone will lift. Carnegie compares gratitude to sunlight. It doesn't remove the shadows, but it makes them less frightening. Chapter 40. How to add more faith to your daily life. Now Carnegie moves into spiritual territory, but in a universal, inclusive way. He explains that faith is not just religion. It's the inner conviction that life is worth trusting. He quotes William James. The greatest discovery of our generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitude of mind. To Carnegie, faith is simply the courage to expect good things even when the road ahead is dark. He tells of a doctor who faced an incurable disease but faced each day saying, "God is still in his heaven. I am still useful to someone." That attitude, said the doctor, was his medicine. It didn't cure his body, but it healed his soul. Carnegie notes that people of strong faith, whether religious or not, often live longer and suffer less from worry. Why? Because they've surrendered the illusion of control. When you stop trying to play God, he says, you start to find peace. He encourages everyone to build their own form of daily faith. Prayer, meditation, reading, nature walks, anything that reconnects you to something larger than yourself. Chapter 41. If you can't sleep, get up and do something useful. Worry and insomnia are old enemies. Carnegie tells of countless readers who wrote to him about sleepless nights filled with circular thoughts. His advice is simple and firm. If you can't sleep, get up and do something instead of lying there worrying. It's the worry that's killing you, not the loss of sleep. He recounts the story of a woman in Chicago who used to lie awake worrying about bills and family problems. One night she got up and began baking bread. When dawn came, she was calm, and her house smelled like hope. Carnegie uses this to illustrate a key principle. Action is the antidote to anxiety. Don't wrestle with your thoughts, redirect them. Sweep the floor, write a letter, read, pray, or go for a walk. Doing something physical breaks the mental loop of worry. It's motion, not meditation, that breaks the chain of fear. Chapter 42. How to Face the Inevitable. This is one of the most powerful, meditative chapters in the entire book. Carnegie says much of our worry comes from resisting what can't be changed. He quotes Epictetus. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. He tells of a sea captain who sailed through a hurricane. When asked later how he remained calm, the captain said, I prayed, I steered, and I accepted whatever came. Carnegie summarizes the wisdom beautifully. Do your best. Leave the rest to fate, God, or the universe. Surrender what you can't control. He calls this the peace of acceptance. It doesn't mean passivity, it means trust. When you accept the inevitable, Carnegie writes, you strip worry of its power. Chapter 43. Live in Day-Tight Compartments, Revisited. As the book nears its close, Carnegie circles back to one of his earliest teachings. Live one day at a time. He compares life to an ocean liner with watertight compartments. When a leak appears in one section, the captain seals it off. Otherwise, the ship will sink. Likewise, we must keep our mental compartments tight. Seal off yesterday. Don't let tomorrow's waves flood today. Live this day only, fully, completely. He adds, yesterday's dead, tomorrow's unborn, only today is yours. He tells of a minister who began each morning by saying aloud, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. That simple ritual, Carnegie says, saved him from burnout and worry. To be content today is to be rich forever. Chapter 44. The Ultimate Freedom. To choose your attitude. In the closing chapter, Carnegie delivers his final and deepest message. The last freedom any human being has, he says, is the freedom to choose his attitude in any given set of circumstances. He tells of a prisoner of war who survived years of captivity by refusing to let hatred or despair dominate his heart. He said, they could take everything from me, but not my ability to smile. Carnegie connects this with the teachings of Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and later wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In that response lies our growth and our freedom. This, Carnegie says, is the essence of conquering worry. We can't control the world, but we can control how we interpret it. He closes with a timeless reminder. Happiness doesn't depend on outer conditions. It depends on inner conditions. And one last piece of advice. Start living today. Stop waiting for tomorrow. Life is short, and the only time to be happy is now. Final reflection. The alchemy of peace. Across all 44 chapters, Dale Carnegie weaves one great truth. Worry is not destroyed by force. It is transformed by understanding. When we live one day at a time, accept what cannot be changed, keep busy with purpose, count our blessings, and trust the flow of life, then peace comes quietly, naturally, like morning light after a long night. You can't control the wind, he concludes, but you can adjust your sails.